Abraham Isaac Kook was the first Ashkenazi chief rabbi of the British Mandatory Palestine, the founder of Yeshiva Merkaz. Rav Kook, Jewish thinker, Halakhist, Kabbalist and a renowned Torah scholar. He is known in Hebrew as Harav Avraham Yitzchak HaKohen Kook, and by the acronym, or simply as Harav. He was one of the most celebrated and influential rabbis of the 20th century. Biography. Rav Kook was born in Griva in the Courland Governorate of the Russian Empire in 1865, today a part of Daugavpils, Latvia. The oldest of 8 children. His father, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman HaKohen Kook, was a student of the Volozhin Yeshiva, the mother of the Lithuanian yeshivas, whereas his maternal grandfather was an avid follower of the Kippus branch of the Hasidic movement, founded by the son of the great rabbi of Chabad, the Tzemach Tzedek, known also as Rabbi Menahem Mendel Schneerson of Lubavitch. As a child he gained a reputation of being an ilui. He entered the Volozhin Yeshiva in 1884 at the age of 18, where he became close to the Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Naftali Zvi Yehuda Berlin. Although he stayed at the yeshiva for only a year and a half, the Netziv has been quoted as saying that if the Volozhin Yeshiva had been founded just to educate Rav Kook, it would have been worthwhile. During his time in the yeshiva, he studied of Rabbi Eliyahu David Rabinovitz Omam, the rabbi of Ponevich and later chief Ashkenazi rabbi of Jerusalem. In 1887, at the age of 23, Kook entered his first rabbinical position as rabbi of Zarmel, Lithuania. In 1888, his wife died, and his father-in-law convinced him to marry her cousin, Rez Rivka, the daughter of the Adorat's twin brother. In 1895 Rav Kook became the rabbi of Bausk. Between 1901 and 1904, he published 3 articles which anticipate the fully developed philosophy which he developed in the land of Israel. Kook personally refrained from eating meat except on the Sabbath and festivals, and his famous essay A Vision of Vegetarianism and Peace summarizes his ideas about the coming of the new society, in which humankind becomes vegan. In 1904, Rav Kook moved to Ottoman Palestine to assume the rabbinical post in Jaffa, which also included responsibility for the new mostly secular Zionist agricultural settlements nearby. During these years he wrote a number of works, most published posthumously, most notably a lengthy commentary on the Aggadot of tractates Berakot and Shabbat, titled Eyna, and a brief but powerful book on morality and spirituality, titled Musar Avakar. Another book on Aggadot published in 1911 called Igrot Heraya incorporated the acronym of his name Abraham Isaac. It was in 1911 that Rav Kook also maintained a correspondence with the Jews of Yemen, addressing some 26 questions to the honorable shepherds of Hashem's congregation, and sending his letter via the known Zionist emissary, Shemuel Yavnai. Their reply was later printed in a book published by Yavnai. Rav Kook's influence on people in different walks of life was already noticeable, as he engaged in kiruv, thereby creating a greater role for Torah and Halakha in the life of the city and the nearby settlements. The outbreak of the First World War caught Rav Kook in Europe, and he was forced to remain in London and Switzerland for the remainder of the war. In 1916, he became rabbi of the Spitalfields Great Synagogue, an immigrant Orthodox community located in Brick Lane, Spitalfields, London, living at 9 Princelet Street, Spitalfields. Upon returning, he was appointed the Ashkenazi rabbi of Jerusalem, and soon after, as first Ashkenazi chief rabbi of Palestine in 1921. Rav Kook founded a yeshiva, Merkaz Rav Kook, in Jerusalem in 1924. Rav Kook decided to name the yeshiva, Merkaz Rav, to represent his vision of the yeshiva being a place where the Rav, or many, could come to learn from all corners of the world. He was a master of Halakha in the strictest sense, while at the same time possessing an unusual openness to new ideas. This drew many religious and non-religious people to him, but also led to widespread misunderstanding of his ideas. He wrote prolifically on both Halakha and Jewish thought, and his books and personality continued to influence many even after his death in Jerusalem in 1935, reflected in attendance of his funeral by an estimated 20,000 mourners. Rav Kook tried to build and maintain channels of communication and political alliances between the various Jewish sectors, including the secular Jewish Zionist leadership, the religious Zionists, and more traditional non-Zionist Orthodox Jews. He believed that the modern movement to re-establish a Jewish state in the land of Israel had profound theological significance, and that the Zionists were agents in a heavenly plan to bring about the Messianic era. For this ideology, the youthful, secular and even anti-religious labor Zionist pioneers, Halutzim, were part of a grand divine process whereby the land and people of Israel were finally being redeemed from the 2,000-year exile by all manner of Jews who sacrificed themselves for the cause of building up the physical land, as laying the groundwork for the ultimate spiritual messianic redemption of world Jewry. Inauguration of Hebrew University. In 1928, Rav Kook wrote a letter to Rav Yosef Messrs, addressing certain misquotes which were erroneously being repeated in his name regarding a speech he gave at the inauguration of Hebrew University. The following are translated excerpts from the letter Rav Kook wrote to Rav Messrs. From the time that I came to the Holy Land, it has been my goal to the best of my ability to draw also those who are estranged and speak to their heart, so that they will come close to Torah and mitzvos, including even those young people who want to develop their physical health so that they will have the strength to protect our holy nation in times of violence. Heaven forbid, at a time when vicious enemies rise up against us, in regard to Hebrew University. Heaven forbid that I should say regarding secular studies that, from Zion will come forth Torah. To the contrary, I told them explicitly that I am afraid lest there come forth, heaven forbid, a stumbling block from their hands if they reject the Torah and the fear of GD and please themselves in the brood of aliens, i.e., studies antithetical to Torah such as biblical criticism. I brought them examples of this from the past, from the incidents that took place due to people's sins during the Berlin Enlightenment, from which came forth groups that turned away from GD and abandoned the source of living waters. But they must guard the holiness of Israel, teachers and students alike, and not follow foreign ideas nor turn aside from the Torah and the mitzvos. And even then, it is not from secular subjects that Torah will come forth, but rather when we support the holy yeshivas, which are dedicated solely to the holiness of the Torah. Together with this, I told him that they should elevate the power of the Tzaddikim and Torah giants who fear GD, and the central yeshiva in our holy and beautiful city, which we are toiling to establish and expand with GD's help, will stand in its great glory. Then, upon the foundation of the holy yeshivas, I said that the verse, from Zion will come forth Torah, will be fulfilled. These words are explicit in my speech that I spoke at that time before the people, before all of the important officials who came to the celebration, and to the entire great crowd of thousands who came from the far ends of the Holy Land and from the lands of the diaspora. So how can malicious people come to distort the words of the living GD in a way that is so filled with wickedness and folly? Theodore Herzl. Eulogy. In 1904, Rav Kook wrote a letter to his father-in-law, Rav Elijah David Rabinovitz T. addressing certain misquotes which were erroneously being repeated in his name regarding a speech he gave after Dr. Theodore Herzl's passing. The following are translated excerpts from the letter Rav Kook wrote to Rav Rabinovitz T. Now there came to me two gentlemen, and requested me, since they were planning to gather in the bank building here to honor the memory of Dr. Herzl, and it was their finding that even those opposed to Zionism would not deny that there were in his heart thoughts concerning the betterment of Israel, though unfortunately he did not find the straight path. Nevertheless, The Holy One does not withhold credit for even good talk. It would be poor manners not to arrange a memorial in his honor in a public meeting place, such as the Anglo-Palestine Bank here. Therefore I promised him I would attend. Understandably, once I agreed to come, I did not want to refuse to speak there some words. I assessed that, God willing, benefit would derive from my words, inasmuch as the other speakers would not have the audacity to belittle God, His Torah, and the sages of Israel. Thank God this assessment proved correct. Of course, I spoke pleasantly and politely, but I did reveal the fundamental failure of the Zionists' entire enterprise. Namely the fact that they do not place at the top of their list of priorities the sanctity of God and His great name, which is the power that enables Israel to survive. In my remarks, I offered no homage to Dr. Herzl per se. What I did say was that such a thought of improving the situation of Israel in Eretz Israel would be worthwhile if we would rise to the occasion. It would require a return to GD by observing and honoring the Torah, and a consensus that the foundation of all must be the power of Torah. We must make amends toward the future that the power of the sanctity of Torah be at the top of our list of priorities. That the son of Yishai be at the lead. If the will to improve materially will rest on Torah, then the Lord will shine His face upon us and crown our every deed with success. At first, the salvation will be gradual, as our holy rabbis remarked upon witnessing daybreak over the valley of Arbel. But after it will gain momentum, appearing as a great and wondrous light, as in the days of our exodus from Egypt. After the address, others came to me and reported that some read into my words ideas I never intended. His empathy towards the non-religious elements aroused the suspicions of many opponents, particularly that of the traditional rabbinical establishment that had functioned from the time of Turkey's control of Greater Palestine, whose paramount leader was Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. However, Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld and Rav Avraham Yitzchak Kook deeply revered each other, which is evidenced by their respectful way of addressing each other, and the honor which they showed each other. He remarked that he was fully capable of rejecting, but since there were enough practicing rejection, he preferred to fill the role of one who embraces. However, Rav Kook was critical of the secularists on certain occasions when they violated halachah, for instance, by not observing the Sabbath or kosher laws, or ascending Har Habayit. Rav Kook wrote rulings presenting his strong opposition to people ascending the Temple Mount, due to the Jewish laws of impurity. He felt that Jews should wait until the coming of the Messiah, when it will be encouraged to enter the Temple Mount. However, he was very careful to express the fact that the Wailing Wall and the Temple Mount were holy sites which belonged to the Jews. Rav Kook also opposed the secular spirit of the Hatikva anthem, and penned another anthem with a more religious theme entitled Emunah. Rose High Yeshiva following Rav Kook's passing in 1935 included Rav Yaakov Moshe Shalom Lapp, Rav Nozen Ra'anan, and Rav Kook's son, Tzvi Yehuda Kook, Rav Avraham Shapiro and Rav Yaakov Shapiro. Legacy. While Rabbi Kook is exalted as one of the most important thinkers in mainstream religious Zionism, there are several prominent quotes in which Rav Kook is quite critical of the more modern Orthodox religious Zionists, whom he saw in some ways as naive and perhaps hypocritical in attempting to synthesize traditional Judaism with a modern and largely secular ideology. Rav Kook never shied away from gently offering constructive criticism to his peers, religious and secular. Rav Kook was interested in outreach and cooperation between different groups and types of Jews, and saw both the good and bad in each of them. His sympathy for them as fellow Jews and desire for Jewish unity should not be misinterpreted as any inherent endorsement of all their ideas. That said, Rav Kook's willingness to engage in joint projects with the secular Zionist leadership must be seen as differentiating him from many of his traditionalist peers. In terms of practical results, it would not be incorrect to characterize Kook as being a Zionist, If one defines a Zionist as one who believes in the re-establishment of the Jewish people as a nation in their ancestral homeland, unlike other Zionist leaders, however, Kook's motivations were purely based on Jewish law and biblical prophecy. The Israeli Moshav Kfar Hara, a settlement founded in 1933, was named after Rav Kook, Hero being a Hebrew acronym for Harav Avraham Hakowin. His son Zvi Yehuda Kook, who was also his most prominent student, took over teaching duties at Merkaz Harav after his death, and dedicated his life to disseminating his father's writings. Many students of Rav Kook's writings and philosophy eventually formed Herzl religious Zionist movement, which is today led by rabbis who studied under Rav Kook's son at Merkaz Harav. In 1937, Yehuda Leib Maimon established Mossad Harav Kook, a religious research foundation and notable publishing house based in Jerusalem. It is named after Rabbi Kook. Support from rabbinic scholars. With the sudden public display of rare letters from the greatest Jewish scholars to Rav Kook, many questions have emerged. Mainly, it is clear that Rav Kook was apolitical. Rav Kook wrote that he was not part of any party. He simply viewed himself as a follower of God and the laws of the Torah. His relationship with many different types of leaders and laymen was a part of his general worldview, that all Jews must work together in serving God and bringing the redemption. Also, one could see from the published letters, that the Charedi leadership was firm in its support of Rav Kook, and in fact had an apparent fond relationship with him. The vast majority of the Charedi leaders publicized handwritten letters in support of Rav Kook. When a few individuals were publicly disrespectful towards him, Rav Kook embraced the support, but made clear that any insults were accepted by him without anger, for he viewed himself as a servant of God, without interest in his personal honor. Some examples of greetings in letters written by Jewish leaders to Rav Kook. Rav Chaim Ozer Grodzinski, our friend, the Gaon, our master and teacher, Rabbi Avraham Yitzchak Kook, Shlita, and the glory of honor, my dear friend, Harav HaGaon, Hagadol, the famous one, the Prince of Torah, our teacher, Harav Avraham Yitzchak HaKohain Kook Shlit, A. Rav Baruch Ber Leibowitz. The true Gaon, the beauty and glory of the generation, the Tzaddik, His Holiness, Rabbi Avraham Yitzchak, may his light shine. May he live for length of good days and years. Amen. The righteous Cohen, head of the Beis Din court in Jerusalem, the holy city. May it soon be built and established. Rav Yosef Yitzchok Schneerson of Lubavitch. The Gaon, who is renowned with splendor among the Geonim of Yurakov, Amud Hayemani, Patish Hashazak, Rav Chatzkel Abramsky, the honored man, beloved of Hashem and his nation, the Rabbi, the Gaon, great and well known, with breadth of knowledge, the glory of the generation, etc., etc. Our master Rabbi Avraham Yitzchak HaKohen Kook, Shlita, chief rabbi of the land of Israel and the head of the Beis Din in the holy city of Jerusalem, Rav Yitzchok Hutner. The glorious honor of our master, our teacher and rabbi, the great Gaon, the crown and sanctity of Israel. Moran, our master, Rabbi Avraham Yitzchak HaKohen Kook, Shlita, Rav Issa Zalman Meltzer and Rav Moshe Mordecai Epstein.